She moved in next door with her husband 6 months ago. Perfect house, perfect marriage, perfect life. But when he started traveling for work, Sarah began asking me for little favors. First, it was moving furniture. Then it was fixing things. Then one night, she said, "I get so lonely when he's gone. Would you mind staying for dinner?" That dinner changed everything. Hey, this is the Storyline Universe channel where we share stories that are real and feel so real, they'll make you question everything you thought you knew about life. My name is Jake. I'm 29, and I live in one of those quiet suburban neighborhoods where everyone knows everyone, but nobody really talks. You know, the tight manicured lawns, two-car garages, the American dream wrapped up in a neat little package. I work as a freelance graphic designer, which means I'm home most days, which also means I notice things. Like when the moving truck pulled up to the house next door 6 months ago. The couple that got out looked like they'd stepped off the cover of a home improvement magazine. He was tall, probably early 40s, expensive suit even on moving day, the kind of guy who probably had his shoes polished every week. She was stunning, shoulder-length blonde hair, elegant even in jeans and a t-shirt, moving with this natural grace that made you stop whatever you were doing just to watch. Her name was Sarah, his was Michael. I learned this when they came over to introduce themselves that first weekend, bringing a bottle of wine and wearing matching smiles. "We're the Hendersons," Michael said, firm handshake, confident eye contact. "Sarah and Michael. We just wanted to meet the neighbors." Sarah smiled warmly, but I caught her glancing around my place with what looked like genuine curiosity. "It's so nice to have neighbors our age," she said. "The realtor said this was a quiet street." "Quiet's the word for it," I replied. "Though I work from home, so if you ever need anything." Michael jumped in before I could finish. "That's very generous, but we're pretty self-sufficient. Sarah's great at managing the house when I travel for work." There was something in the way he said it, like he was establishing territory. Sarah's smile flickered for just a second, but she nodded along. They seemed perfect. Too perfect? Maybe. For the first few weeks, I barely saw them. Michael left every morning at exactly 7:15 in his black BMW. Sarah usually left around 8:30 in her white Lexus SUV. They'd come home, have dinner on their back deck, everything peaceful and orderly. Then Michael started traveling. The first time Sarah knocked on my door, I was deep into a design project, coffee cold, wearing yesterday's t-shirt. It was a Tuesday morning, maybe 10 a.m. "Hi, Jake," she said, looking a little embarrassed. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm trying to move this bookshelf upstairs, and it's heavier than I thought." Michael usually handles the heavy lifting, but he's in Chicago until Friday. "Would you mind?" "Of course," I said, grabbing my shoes. "No problem at all." Her house was immaculate. Everything in its place, not a speck of dust anywhere, like something out of a design catalog. The bookshelf was solid oak, definitely a two-person job. "I probably should have waited," she said as we maneuvered it up the stairs. "But I get these ideas when he's gone, you know, like I need to keep busy." We got it positioned in what looked like a home office. Sarah stood back, hands on her hips, examining our work. "Perfect," she said, turning to me with a genuine smile. "I really can't thank you enough. Can I offer you coffee? I just made a fresh pot." I should have said no. I had deadlines, projects waiting. But something about the way she asked, like maybe she needed the company more than I needed to get back to work, made me say yes. We sat in her kitchen, which had this warm, lived-in feeling despite being spotless. Sarah poured coffee from an expensive-looking machine, and we talked about normal things, the neighborhood, work, the weather. But there was an undercurrent I couldn't quite name, like she was testing the waters of something. "Michael travels a lot," she said eventually, stirring her coffee slowly. 2 or 3 times a month, sometimes for a week at a time. It gets quiet." "I bet. Big house for one person." She nodded, looking out the window toward my place. "It's nice having someone close by, someone I can count on if I need help." When I left an hour later, I told myself it was just neighborly kindness, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The second time was 3 weeks later. This time it was a leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. "I called a plumber," Sarah explained as she led me upstairs. "But they can't come until next week, and it's driving me crazy. The dripping is right above the bedroom." She was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater that kept slipping off one shoulder. I tried to focus on the faucet, but I kept noticing things the way she bit her lower lip when she was thinking, the faint scent of her perfume, how she stood just a little closer than necessary while I worked. "You're a lifesaver," she said when I finally got it to stop. "Michael would have just told me to deal with it until the plumber could come." There was something in her voice when she said his name. Not resentment exactly, but maybe disappointment. This time when she offered coffee, I almost said no. Almost. "So what do you do when he's traveling?" I asked, as we sat in her living room this time, afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows. "Read, mostly. Watch movies he doesn't like. Sometimes I feel like I'm living two different lives, the one when he's here and the one when he's not." "Which one do you prefer?" She looked at me for a long moment before answering. That's probably not a question I should answer. But the way she said it was answer enough. The pattern developed over the next month. Every time Michael's car disappeared down the street, my phone would buzz within a day or two. Always something small, a burned-out light bulb she couldn't reach, a jar she couldn't open, furniture that needed moving. Always followed by coffee. Conversations that lasted longer than they should have. I started looking forward to those texts, started noticing when his car was gone before she even called. The turning point came on a Thursday evening in November. Michael had left that morning for a conference in Seattle, supposed to be gone until Monday. I was making dinner when I heard the knock. Sarah stood on my doorstep, holding a bottle of wine and looking embarrassed. "I know this is going to sound pathetic," she said, "but I made way too much lasagna, and I was wondering, would you mind having dinner with me? I hate eating alone, and it seems silly to let it go to waste." I should have made an excuse. Should have said I'd already eaten, or had work to do, or anything else. Instead, I found myself saying, "That sounds great. Let me grab a jacket." Her dining room table was set for two with actual cloth napkins and wine glasses. Candles flickered in the center, casting warm shadows on the walls. "This is beautiful," I said, and I meant it. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It's nice to have someone to cook for," she replied, pouring wine into both glasses. "Michael's always too busy to notice what he's eating." The lasagna was incredible, but it was the conversation that really got to me. Without the pretense of needing help with something, we just talked, really talked. About books, movies, places we wanted to travel, dreams we'd had as kids. Sarah was funny, smart, surprisingly easy to be around when she wasn't playing the perfect suburban wife. "Can I ask you something?" she said as we finished the second bottle of wine. "Sure. Do you ever feel like you're living the wrong life? Like you made all the right choices on paper but somehow ended up somewhere you don't recognize?" I thought about it. "Sometimes." "Why?" She was quiet for a moment, swirling wine in her glass. "I married Michael because he was safe, stable, everything my parents said I should want in a husband. And for a while, that felt like enough. And now? Now I wonder what would have happened if I'd been braver, if I'd chosen passion over security." The air in the room felt charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm. We were sitting across from each other, but it felt like we were much closer. "Sarah," I started, not sure what I was going to say. "I know," she said softly. "I know this is complicated. I know I shouldn't be saying these things to you. But when Michael's gone, and you come over and we talk like this, it's the first time in years I've felt like myself." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what she'd said hanging between us. "Maybe I should go," I said, even though it was the last thing I wanted to do. "Maybe you should," she agreed, but she made no move to get up. Instead, she reached across the table and put her hand over mine. Her fingers were warm, soft, and when I looked up into her eyes, I saw something I'd been trying to ignore for weeks. "Sarah?" "I know we can't," she whispered. "I know all the reasons why this is wrong, but I can't stop thinking about what it would feel like to be with someone who actually sees me." I turned my hand over so our palms were touching. "I see you. I know you do. That's the problem." We stayed like that for what felt like forever, just holding hands across her dining room table, both of us knowing we were standing on the edge of something we couldn't take back. Finally, she pulled her hand away and stood up. "You should go," she said, but her voice was shaky. I stood too, but instead of heading for the door, I found myself moving around the table toward her. "Jake," she breathed, backing up until she hit the wall. "Tell me to leave," I said, stopping just close enough to feel the heat radiating off her body. "I can't," she whispered. That's when I kissed her. Soft at first, tentative, giving her every chance to push me away. Instead, her hands came up to my face, pulling me closer. She tasted like wine and possibility, and when she made a small sound in the back of her throat, I knew we were both lost. We broke apart, breathing hard. "This is crazy," she said, but she didn't step away. "Completely insane," I agreed, resting my forehead against hers. "Michael will be back Sunday." "I know." "We can't do this again." "I know." But even as she said it, her hands were still on my face, her body still pressed against mine. "One night," she whispered. "Can we have one night where I don't have to be the perfect wife? Where I can just be Sarah?" I kissed her again, deeper this time, pouring all the weeks of wanting into that single moment. "Yes," I breathed against her lips. "We can have one night." She took my hand and led me upstairs, to the guest room at the end of the hall. Far from the master bedroom, far from the life she shared with Michael. What happened next was everything I'd imagined, and nothing like I'd expected. It wasn't just physical, though the chemistry between us was electric. It was emotional, intimate, in a way that made my chest ache. She was soft and responsive, and completely present in a way that made me understand why she felt invisible in her marriage. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sheets, her head on my chest, both of us quiet. "I should feel guilty," she said eventually. "Do you?" "No. That's what scares me." I ran my fingers through her hair, still trying to process what had just happened. "What are we doing, Sarah?" "I don't know," she admitted. "I just know I don't want this to be the only time." "What about Michael?" She was quiet for so long, I thought she'd fallen asleep. "Michael sees the version of me he wants to see," she finally said. "You see the version of me I actually am." I wanted to tell her to leave him. Wanted to say we could figure it out, make it work somehow. But I knew it wasn't that simple. "He travels again next week," she said softly. "Sarah?" I know this is wrong. I know we're playing with fire." She lifted her head to look at me. "But I can't go back to pretending I don't feel this." I cupped her face in my hands, memorizing every detail, the way her eyes looked in the dim light, the softness of her skin, the vulnerability in her expression. "Neither can I admitted. That was 4 months ago. Michael still travels regularly, still leaves his perfect wife in their perfect house. And Sarah still calls me when he's gone, still asks for help with things that don't really need fixing. But now, when I come over, we don't pretend it's about moving furniture or changing light bulbs. Now she opens the door in a silk robe or that oversized sweater, and we both know why I'm really there. It's not a relationship in any traditional sense. We never talk about the future, never make plans beyond the next time he leaves town. But in those stolen moments, in the space between her real life and the life she wishes she had, we've created something that feels more real than anything either of us has ever known. I know it can't last forever. I know that eventually, something will have to give. But for now, in the quiet suburban nights when her husband is 1,000 miles away, I get to be the man who sees Sarah for who she really is. And she gets to be the woman she was always meant to be. Some people might call it an affair. I call it the most honest thing either of us has ever done.